another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. Jesus Christ died. He rose again. Just gonna head to get into it. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this last week, but I was just so tired from not getting any sleep last week that I just decided to wait for a few days until I felt somewhat rested. But everybody's talking about Bam Adebayo's 83-point game versus the Washington Wizards, okay? And the Wizards are the sorriest team in the NBA right now. And but Bam scored 83 points, and there are a lot of people who are criticizing it too, particularly from the number of free throws that Bam Adebayo shot. And I hear some people who enjoyed Bam Adebayo's 83 points. Then there are some, like my main man Jason Whitlock, who says he disgraced Kobe Bryant, okay? And I think they particularly point to the number of free throws that Bam Adebayo shot. And so there was negative reaction to it. There was positive reaction to it. I know seeing Charles Barkley the other day on Inside the NBA, he said he blamed the Washington Wizards, okay? And for not having I don't want to use the word pride. I don't want to use the word pride. He criticized the Washington Wizards for not showing any sort of effort or resistance to Bam Adebayo scoring 83 points. Okay, and Charles Barkley made the comment: if you're shooting threes, back when Charles Barkley was playing, Barkley made the point that if you were shooting threes back in the 90s when you're up like 20, 25 points, okay, your butt would get thrown into the third row of the stands, okay? That's what Barkley said. And so it made me think. So it made me think about how this, everything was better back in the day. I'm sorry. Everything was better back in the day. The competition was better. The physicality was better. The resistance was better. Okay. Competition was better. I think I already said that. The players were better and more skilled. Okay. And I just heard Robert Parrish the other day on a podcast. I just heard Robert Parrish rail against load management, okay? And yeah. Everything was better in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, 60s, to the early part of the NBA. Competition was better, physicality, players, skilled, coaches, and so even the commercials were better, okay? Even the commercials were better. I remember seeing this one commercial by Nike. I remember seeing this one commercial by Nike. It was called Parliament Funkadelic, okay? See, even the commercials in the 90s and even into the early 2000s were better. Take a look at this commercial right here.
Welcome back to the P. We about to get real funky up in here right now with this brand new Stone Cold groove entitled The Funk Ship.
Well, back in 1975,
you know the funk will survive.
Just like back in the day.
Lord, I like the way y'all play.
I had your funk today.
We're gonna go way up. We're gonna funk everybody. thrust.
Now turn me loose on 'em. You know I got to get it. Turn me loose on 'em.
Let the funk keep me going strong.
Turn me loose on 'em. I got the fix. Turn me loose on 'em. 'Cause the funk won't
You are the future to the funk.
That's still one of my favorite commercials right there. Snoop Hoop, George Clinton, and you saw Derek Fisher was in there. You saw Rebecca LaHobo was in there. Man, that was one of my high favorite commercials growing up in the early part of the new millennium. That was one of my favorite basketball commercials of all time. Okay, one of my high favorites, and everything was better. Everything was better back in the day. And you hear a lot of players railing on this generation. JJ Redick called the early part of the NBA plumbers. And I don't think JJ Redick had a real sense of just how brutal basketball was back then, okay? Back then you could do pretty much anything in the NBA and you would not get called for it, okay? And I showed y'all a while ago what happened when somebody would dunk, okay? Pitching Paul Ayrton said players could solely dunk the ball, but if you dunk the ball, your man didn't like it, and you would pay for it the next time down, okay? And so, and he also added that every time you left your feet, you were endangering yourself because players would take your legs right out, okay? Hold on. Yeah, so, but everything he was better in the 90s. Everything was better back in the day. And you keep hearing players from previous generations say it. I know they hate to say it, but everything was better back then. And the game to today is just trash. Just trash. I saw all this. So when Oscar Robertson requested a trade from the Cincinnati Royals, aka the forerunner of the Sacramento Kings, he requested a trade, okay? And the Cincinnati Royals, they thought they traded him to the Baltimore Bullets at that time, okay? So they thought they had Oscar Robertson traded to the Baltimore Bullets. But Oscar Robertson said no. So 2 more weeks went by until they finally traded him to the Milwaukee Bucks, the team with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then known as Lou Alcindor, okay? And I just find it very ironic that Oscar Robertson was nearly traded to the Bullets, because who did the Milwaukee Bucks play in the 1971 NBA Finals? The Washington Bullets. The Baltimore Bullets, okay? Who had Earl Monroe, Wes Unseld, okay? I think that would do it. I think if they added Oscar Robertson, if the Bullets were able to add Oscar Robertson, okay? Man, that tandem of Unseld, Monroe, Robertson, they probably would have been the team of the 70s. Yeah, I believe that. If they would have added Oscar Robertson, they probably would have been the team of the 70s, okay? And the Bullets, they made the most finals appearances of the decade because they won 1971, 1975, 1978, and 1979, okay? Winning the championship in 1978, okay? So, yeah. But, the first 2 times they went to the NBA Finals, I just mentioned they got swept by the Bucks. Then they got swept by the Golden State Warriors, 1975. Yeah, Rick Barry and company, they got swept. Rick Barry swept them out of the NBA Finals, okay? And the Bullets were coached by K.C. Jones too, okay? Bullets had the best record in the league that year. They went 60-22. They ironically knocked off the Boston Celtics on their way in the playoffs, on their way to the NBA Finals, okay? So, but I think if the Bullets, if the Royals, if Oscar Robertson had been traded to the Bullets, they would have been the team of the decade in the 70s. Instead, it was parity in the 70s as far as NBA championships go. 1970 Knicks, 71 Bucks, 72 Lakers, 73 Knicks, 74 Celtics, 75 Bullets, 76 Celtics, 77 Blazers, 78 Bullets, 79 Sonics. Okay, so yeah, the championships were up for grabs. That's what I like to say in the 70s. Okay. Speaking of the 1976 NBA Finals, there was a controversial moment that took place at the end of the first overtime of Game 5, okay? So the triple overtime game is the most memorable game of that series, okay? But there was a controversial moment that took place at the end of the first overtime, okay? So, I think the Suns inbounded the ball. They don't get a good shot, okay? And Paul Silas calls timeout, okay? Paul Silas calls timeout. And the referee doesn't see it. Richie Powers, the referee, he doesn't see it, okay? And so one of the CBS broadcasters pointed it out. He said, hey, Paul Silas just called timeout. He better be lucky that Richie Powers wasn't looking, okay? So Dick Van Arsdale, who played for the Phoenix Suns at that time, he spoke about that years later. He said should have been the technical foul on Richie Powers, and he refused to call it. I think his statement was he didn't want to see the game end on a call like that. So that's not exactly following the rules. So that was a big problem at that time. Rick Barry, who was also on the call for CBS, said it is the officials' request to grant the timeout. Okay? And if Richie Powers had granted that timeout, the Suns shoot a technical free throw, take the lead, and they could have won that game. And Rick Barry said that was wrong. Phoenix got screwed in that game, okay? And Paul Silas even commented on it. He said, I just remember thinking what a bonehead play that was, but I always tell Phoenix, hey, you probably would have missed anyway, okay? So, game goes into a second overtime, right? John Havlicek hits a shot. Boston fans rush the floor, thinking the game has been won. Game has not been won, okay? And so, in the chaos of everything, take a look at his footage of what happened to Richie Powers, okay?
The final 5 seconds. Everybody on their feet here in the Boston Garden. And everybody will be looking for JoJo White. You can bet on that. Let's see if they try and pull a little switch here and maybe go with Havlicek. But the only two good shooters right now, because Nelson's taking out of bounds, are White and Havlicek. Collins, remember, is fouled out. So is Scott. Here come the Celtics. Clock will start when it's touched. Havlicek touches it. It begins. 3 seconds. Hondo off the glass. He's got it with a second. John Havlicek won it. It's over. No, there's 2 seconds to go. The Boston Celtics, but the clock should have run out. Or did it have to? Everybody's on the floor.
In this basketball game, Brent. The ball went in with 2 seconds to go, and the clock has to stop on a made basket. The Phoenix Suns will get the ball with 2 seconds to go. This game is not over.
Richie Powers is in a fight with a fan right here in front. Referee Richie Powers was assaulted by a fan. They've pulled the bore off. There are the cops out in the middle. They got fans out in the middle of the floor. The Phoenix Suns trying to get it cleared to get the 2 seconds off. Here's Richie Powers now. Don Murphy is over there with him. We've got 2 seconds. You're right, Rick. Murphy just told me. Murphy has verified what you said. 2 seconds left. 2 seconds left in the game. They've got to clear the floor. They've got to bring the Phoenix Suns back. It's not over yet. We've got 2 seconds left in this game.
Here goes
Now
John
watch in slow
Havlicek.
motion.
He's driving. He
You can't
goes
run the
right up.
clock out.
Makes an almost impossible shot as he almost hits the floor. Banks it in. 2 seconds to go. The ball had gone through. The clock ticked down to 1, but there was 2 seconds when the ball was in the basket.
111, 110. Double overtime. It's going to take us a while to get this floor cleared off. Murphy told me there were 2 seconds. Believe
Absolutely,
me, we've
there
got
are
2 seconds left in this basketball game.
Yeah. Richie Powers got into a fight with a fan. That's how crazy Celtic fans were. Oh my goodness. That's how crazy Celtic fans were, okay? Richie Powers getting into a fight with a fan. That, man, that's just how wild and crazy Celtic fans were about their basketball team. And I think what made them even more crazier was the game was played on a Friday night. Yeah. The game was played on a Friday night. So work week is over. Friday night. Celtics fans probably been out drinking, okay? Yeah. Yeah. And so oh yeah, man, that's how crazy those Celtic fans were. They were probably drinking, okay? Yeah, so okay, so yeah, okay. I'll stop there. All right. That's it. And that's all for the Sean I always said the Sean Farrell podcast. That's it for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I'm out.